Slowly getting everybody in. I have to go connect this streaming software again. Give me 1 second.
No worries.
Welcome, everybody. Just give us a moment. We're just getting the technical things started. Won't be more than a few more seconds. What time is it where you are, my friend Gary?
It is about 5 p.m., just gone.
Excellent. All right, we are now going live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Coach's Corner, where today we are talking about referrals, which is always one of my favorite conversations. Why is it my favorite conversation? Because it means more money in my pocket and the pocket of the people I care about. So that's always important to me. If you are listening to us live on Facebook, please go in and put a hashtag live so that we know you're here. If you are listening to the replay, put in hashtag replay. We love it when people let us know that they got value and that they are here. Hold on, let me turn this off so I can see you. Great, fantastic. Well, Gary, it's so great to have you here. Listen, I love finding experts all over the freaking world. This is like amazing, right? For those of you who don't know, Gary is based in the UK, right, Gary?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, in Devon, so right out in the countryside.
Awesome. Don't you just love the benefits of COVID that allowed us to go wherever we want to work? I love this whole thing. It was one of the silver,
Absolutely.
yeah, one of the
COVID was a
silver.
brilliant time for me. I know it was horrible for a lot of people, but it was amazing for me.
You know, I have a friend who lost 10 close family members and friends to COVID in like
Yeah.
I think a 10-week period, right?
Mm.
And, people were calling him and he wasn't calling them back, right? He had a lot on his plate, right?
Yeah, of
And
course.
somebody called me and goes, that guy, he never even called me back. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? You have no idea what's happening in that man's life. Like I just kind of went off, right?
I don't blame you.
And he's like, well, how do you know? And I said, because I reached out and said, are you okay? When he didn't respond to me. My response was, wow, you usually respond, is everything okay? And it wasn't okay.
Mm.
So, COVID, just like any major breakdown that occurs, there's always a silver lining in there if we're willing to look for it, right? And given that I spend most of my time having conversations about referrals and networking and all of that world, right? When I came across you inside of Dan's group, I was so happy because there aren't very many people who specialize in this particular conversation. So please introduce yourself to everybody listening, both live and online, with who you are, what your company is, what you do, and then we'll just dive right in to talk about some of the things that we created we were going to talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, as we mentioned, born and bred in the UK, spent most of my life in Devon, which is a beautiful part of the country, but not the best for job opportunities. So, when you run an online business, it's the perfect place to be because you can run it from anywhere, run it from one of the best places in the UK, but still make money, which is very difficult in this part of the world. And my company is focused on the referrals, getting daily referrals for your business. And that came off the back of a previous business that I had, a coaching business that I built primarily off word of mouth and referrals. And from there, I spoke to a lot of people, built connections, built friendships, relationships. And I was getting more and more people asking me how I was doing it because referrals are like, we love getting referrals, but we just can't get them consistently. How are you able
I
to do
need a
it?
step-by-step plan, man.
Yeah, basically. And I said to them outright at the start, I don't know if what I do is going to work for you because I didn't create this system. It's kind of things that people recommend. I've implemented it into my own business and it's worked. But I'm more than happy to give you the steps. And if it works for your business, brilliant. If it doesn't, please don't shoot me. I did warn you at the start. Luckily, it did work.
I
And
didn't want you
from
at the
there,
start. Don't shoot me. I wasn't coming for you as a client anyway.
yeah, exactly. And then it did work. And from there, I realized that actually it was a system that can be replicated into pretty much any business, but particularly service based, because that's what my expertise was. That was the businesses that I was helping others with. And from there, I was able to create my business off the back of that based on things that I've seen to work for my own business things that have worked for other people that I've helped, and what I've learned from other experts in this area as well.
Oh, that's so awesome. Well, we're gonna delve into a lot of that right now. You guys, obviously, we're not gonna get to everything. You just don't in 30 to 40 minutes. You just
Of
don't.
course.
Okay. So at some point, Gary will put his information into the chat so that you guys can reach out and have a private conversation if you want more information on it. Okay. So, Gary, what do you think that people, I've coached so many people now, and people come to me with what they think is the problem. And I know it's actually these three other things. So they're coming to me for X, but what they really need is, Y, W, Y, and Z, right? So what do you think people think they need versus what they actually need in this area of lead generation and referrals?
So a lot of people do come to me with that thing is, I need more leads. I need more potential clients. And it's true to a point, but actually when we go into it, what we realize is what they actually need is more relationships. They need better quality relationships, and they need more of them, but sometimes they just need to improve some of the ones they've actually already got. And those relationships will then lead to leads. But it comes from doing things in the right way. So if you go out trying to get leads, you can get them, but you're probably going to hate every moment of it. It's probably going to suck. It's probably going to be boring. It's probably going to be tedious. But when you put the focus around relationships, all of a sudden you enjoy the business, you enjoy the lead generation process, and you enjoy creating clients for your business. Most people enjoy the part of delivering their service. That's one of the reasons why they started their business.
Sure.
But you need to learn to enjoy the lead generation side of it. Otherwise, it's going to make a large part of your business really tedious and boring until you can get to the point where you can hire somebody else to do that stuff for you. But if you're a solopreneur at the start, you're not going to be able to do that. And maybe one day, maybe you never will. Some people actually do want to just run their business by themselves. They don't want a big team. I'm like that. I don't want a big team behind me. Maybe a couple of assistants, that sort of thing. But I don't want
I'm
a
not
huge,
interested in
massive
having a
team.
bunch of employees either. I totally get it.
Exactly.
And what Gary's pointing to is the biggest difference between sales and marketing, right?
Yeah.
Like people think they have to market more rather than deal with their sales processes. And what are they actually doing to follow up and develop that relationship with people to the point where that person is like, oh my God, Sean follows up with me every 3 months just to check in and see how I'm doing, right? Today I talked to somebody and I know who she needs is Sean. They're not going to think about anybody else if I've been developing that relationship over time. So, and I agree with you. We have over 2,000 members in the World Referral Network, and we don't have a leads problem. Like we are never running out of people to talk to. So if it's not a leads problem, how do we create a structure to develop those relationships in a way that we're clear what the ROI is from the time? Because that's a time commitment. It's not a money commitment necessarily, although some networking meetings you have to spend money to get your coffee or your food or whatever. So there's a little bit of money maybe in lead generation, but it's really what follows after that. That's like the juicy, key, critical piece, right? So
Yeah. And for me, most people are trying to essentially cut corners when it comes to getting clients for their business. And what I mean by that is they're trying to do it in the quickest way possible. They're trying to go from just going to someone and saying, do you want to buy my stuff? Them saying yes, making the sale. Occasionally that happens, but usually what happens is you need to invest time and energy into the relationships with the people that are going to become clients of yours. And that does take time and effort on your part. And the whole thing around follow-up that you talk about, most businesses are terrible at follow-up. I know somebody who, one of the best sales trainers in the world, and he said he had to follow up with somebody for 4 years before they essentially spent any money with him. And he did it even though they weren't responding. But then out of nowhere, they said, oh, I need somebody to speak at this event. I was supposed to do it. I can't do it. I think you'd be great for it. Can you do it? It's a paid engagement. He'd never spoken to this person in 4 years, but he kept following up with him. And he was still top of mind for this person, even though they barely even spoke.
Consistency
Barely
and
even responded.
reliability, right? He was consistent and he was reliable to that person.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is as well, when he was following up, it wasn't always about making the sale. It was following up with genuine curiosity about what's going on in his life, if there's anything he can do to help him, is there anybody he can connect him with, any resources he can support him with. Sometimes it might be that there's a paid offer that he thought it might be useful for him. But because of that consistency and following up, it created an opportunity years down the line. And I've had it as well, where I've followed up with people for a good 2-3 years, usually, again, just opening a relationship and keeping that relationship going. I didn't know if that was going to turn into a sale, and sometimes it doesn't, but then there are times where it does. And the thing is, there's like, the percentage of people that you speak to that are ready to buy right now is very minimal. Probably 5% of the people you speak to are ready to buy right now.
You're being
Most
generous. We're
businesses
talking 3%, you guys. 3% of the people, 3 to 5.
I was being generous, yeah. So let's just say 3 to 5% of the 97 to 95% of other people. Most businesses ignore those people. But if you ignore those people, you won't have a business for the long term. If you cater to those people and build relationships with those people, your business will survive whatever is thrown at you from society, government, anything that's going on in the world, your business will survive.
So, Gary Vaynerchuk called this jab, 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 right hook when he wrote his book, right?
Yeah.
Which means, and how I look at it is for every 4 times I'm talking to that person, I may have an ask. So the other 3 times there's like, what does somebody else have that could help them? What is a free thing I have that could help them? What's a referral I could give them that would help them? So the other 75% of the time, I'm just looking for a way to make their life a little easier, right? Which does make referrals a lot easier, right? Like referrals come to me easier because, like you said, if you're consistently checking in and following up, then you will stay top of mind. And of course, then there's Google's 7-11-4 rule, right? Which means they need to see 7 hours of content from you, right? On 4 different platforms with 11 different touch points before they're even interested in talking to you about what you have to sell. So what would you say is the number one shift that turns people into what we would call a referral attractor?
So I think it goes back slightly to kind of what you were saying then. So one of the things about referral attractors is most people are looking to get referrals from their clients, people they've worked with in the past. And they're usually your best source of referrals, but they're probably not your most consistent. I get a lot of my referrals from people that have never worked with me, but I've been consistent in the relationship I've built with them. I've been consistent in the conversations we've had, and I've been consistent with showing them content and resources that could be of help. And because they see my expertise demonstrated over and over again, when somebody mentions anything about referrals or networking or anything where my offer could be applicable to them and their business, I am top of mind for them. So I'm getting people recommending me most days now without me having to ask for it. I still ask for referrals, but by no means as much as I used to, because of the countless, I don't know how many years now I've invested into this, but the amount of years I put into it to build these relationships, I can get those referrals without asking. And that's the ultimate goal for anyone that wants to referrals, is to get them without asking. But you're not going to get that without putting that time investment in at the beginning.
So then what I hear you saying is the number one shift is to get people to get that there's time and energy commitment at the beginning, during, and throughout the whole process, and that it takes consistency, being the magic word, to actually get into people's upper level of their mind, right? Like you need to be consistent in giving them value of some sort, and more importantly, giving them authenticity of some sort, because people know you have products to sell, right?
Exactly. And also remembering that there are other ways to get referrals other than your clients, partnerships with businesses, affiliates, networking, content, all of those things can lead to referrals. So if you put all your focus on trying to get your clients to send more referrals, you will get them, but you won't get them as many and as consistently as you will if you build at least 2 or 3 very good referral sources.
All right, great. Why does asking for the sale kill relationships? What should they do instead?
So asking for the sale can kill relationships. Sometimes it doesn't if you
You've
say
had
it
a
at the
good
right
relationship
time.
up until then, right? Yeah.
But the most people jump too quickly into that sale. So I've had it many
Hold on
times
one
where
second.
people
Let me give you an example of too quickly, just so you all know this example, okay? I'm in a networking meeting. I'm sitting down. I haven't walked anywhere. I'm not doing anything. And this guy walks up to me in a networking meeting and says, wow, I'd love to tell you about my weight loss products. I think you would be a really great blah, 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 blah. Now, I've never met this guy before. Okay. These are the first words out of his mouth. Now, I was ready and willing and able to come back with something, you know, cutting and sarcastic. Okay. But unfortunately, he did this right in front of 2 or 3 other guys that I network with who know me really well, and they were offended on my behalf. Literally, in 2 seconds, they rounded him and said, "What the WTF, buddy? What was that?" Right? Like, and it was the first words out of his mouth. You guys, first impressions do make a difference. All right.
Hmm.
And I always tell people, do whatever it takes to make the first 15 minutes that you're talking to anybody all about them. Right. But if the first word out of your mouth is, I can help you with my stuff, you're going about it the wrong way.
Yeah, exactly that. So I get countless cold pitches, people trying to sell me things are the first interaction I have every single day. I'm sure we all do. If you run an online business, it's part and parcel of the course. The thing is as well, I've had some great relationships come from people that have pitched me in the opening message, but it hurt their credibility from the start, and they had to work a lot harder to build that relationship with me because I didn't trust them, and that trust, as soon as they pitched me, went down. Because
Yeah, it kills it
most of
off
the time,
immediately, right?
yeah, most of the time they've done no research, they've not personalized it in any way. It's a general pitch. And I know there are some people that they've just been taught that way, or they don't know any better, and they're just desperate. They're trying to build a business, and I get it. You're trying to put food on the table. I completely get that you're trying to build your business, but there are better ways of doing it, and that's not how I operate. But at the same time, I won't discount someone straight away if they cold pitch, and as long as they're at least polite about it, and when I say no, they accept the no. But it makes it a lot harder for them, and they have to then invest more time and energy to build that with me and build that credibility and get that trust back that is essentially lost from that cold pitch that happened right away.
So what do you say is the best way to start building relationships with the people that you meet?
I think for me, the best way is to try and be interested rather than interesting. If you try and be the most interesting person in the room, not many people will find you that interesting. But if you become the most interested person in the room, everyone's going to be interested in you at that point. It's a funny thing that the more interested you are in someone else, the more interested they are in you. That's generally my experience. Not always. There are some people that love to dominate conversations, and you will be very interested in them, and they never have any interest in you. That's okay. But the majority of the time, they then start to want to know more about you and your life, because it's like, oh, this person just always wants to know about me. That's very rare, especially in networking situations.
So what are the things that you set up for yourself that you found really work as structures for managing this?
So for me, the first thing starts from conversations. I'm setting up conversations every single day. A lot of people will recommend that you don't fill your calendar with conversations. In a sense, you only fill your calendar with potential clients, potential leads, people that have generated interest already. I have found it to be the opposite. That actually, if you have conversations where you don't necessarily know where it's going to go, but I know there's lots of directions it can go in, whether it's a collaboration, I can recommend a resource to them, an introduction. Sometimes I might need their product or service, sometimes they might need mine, but I'm open to any and all opportunities. And from there as well, I know that those conversations can open relationships. And I'm strategic as well in the conversations I'm filling. It's not just filling your calendar with any conversations. It's strategically filling it with people that you know generally is going to bring some sort of opportunity, whether that's a referral partnership or a client relationship. It doesn't really matter. But the main thing is that the more of those conversations I've got, the more opportunities I'm going to get to build my business. And then from there, I am being strategic in the time that I spend with those people. I'm making sure that I invest into those relationships, and I have my priorities set. So family first, outside of business, they always come first. But then within business, you got your clients. Then I've got like my referral partners, and then it's the people that are in my extended network beyond that, that if there's time left, I'll give that time to them. But I am filling my time with conversations, but the right conversations at the right time.
How much time do you spend having conversations with cold connections per day?
Cold connections that I've never met before, I'll probably do a maximum of one a day conversation with those types of people, like a Zoom conversation like this.
Right. So let's say one one conversation a day with someone you've never met that you're starting a relationship with and you're starting to develop with. And then
Yeah,
there's how many
if I
conversations
have
you have with,
time.
right. And then how many conversations do you have with people that are already in relationship with someone? Like, how often do you check in with people?
I'm checking in with people whenever I've got time in my day. That's what my day is spent doing beyond my client work. It is checking in and having conversations with the people that I've already developed relationships. And that's another mistake a lot of people make. They spend maybe 80-90% of their time trying to reach out to new leads and new connections and having conversations with people they never spoke to before. And then they spend maybe 5% of their time, maybe up to 10, who knows, but most
Feeding
people
those
not very
leads.
much time with the people that they've already had conversations with in the past. And they're wondering
Yeah.
why they're not getting clients, because they're trying to turn cold leads into clients, and it rarely happens. But if they invested it and flipped it around and spent more time with the people they've already built connections with, they're going to get a lot more clients from that.
Yeah, very good. So what I normally tell people is, a good rule of thumb is to meet 7 to 10 new people a week, right? Which once they've filtered themselves out a bit, maybe 4 of 5 of those will return your call to actually have a new quote unquote conversation with. The rest of the people that I recommend you talking to is checking in with people 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months after the last time you checked in with them so that they know that that they're still there and
Yeah.
that they still matter and that they still have things that they're up to that are important. One of the questions I always ask is, are you um, like marketing, or are you, putting anything out there in the world that you would like me to post for you on my social media? Like, are you doing a workshop or a webinar or a free gift, or is there any way that I can give you more coverage out in the world? People rarely say no to that offer,
Mm.
right? And now I'm putting what I call deposits into their emotional bank account. So here's the thing, everybody, every single person you meet, okay, you're either withdrawing from their emotional bank account by asking them for stuff, or you're giving them stuff and you're making deposits. But every relationship is this way. If you think it's not that way, then you're just not in touch with reality. Every relationship is this way. You're either making deposits or you're taking withdrawals from their emotional bank accounts. And if you're one of those people that's constantly asking for withdrawals, at the end of the year, you're going to be demoted on my list, right? You're no longer in the inner tribe if you're just an asker. You're going to be demoted because I only keep reciprocal people in my inner circle, right? And I have no problems demoting people and having them be what Louise and I would call friendly neighbors, right? They're demoted. They're not bad people, right? But they're just not reciprocal in the way that I need, right? So my game is to always build reciprocal relationships with people, like relationships where, everything I give them is valued, right? And they know they matter to me. And as long as they know they matter, then I've done a good job in building that relationship, right? But what's something daily that creates inbound referrals, like without all that pressure? What are some actions that people could take daily?
For me, the biggest thing that they can be doing beyond the conversations and the relationships is demonstrating their expertise and their value. And there's two sides to that, because their expertise is one part where they can bring value, but there are other things as well, like recommending resources, recommending books, or in making introductions to other people that have an expertise that you don't. So one of the things I'll often ask at my networking events is, what are some things that you're working on at the moment, or what are some skills you're trying to build? And if I know somebody that would be able to assist them with that, and it could just be that they produce great content, I'll make that introduction, because I don't have expertise in every area of business, but I know somebody in pretty much every area of business that I can recommend for whatever might show up. And the other thing
Right.
as well, in my conversations, most people are focused only on finding out what people need that's related to their own offers. I want to know
Right.
absolutely anything that they need at that time, because I know that I can point them in the right direction. And it doesn't matter if I don't have those expertise, because I can send them to the right person that does. And I know there are people that are doing that for me. They're also reaching out and they're having conversations. And as soon as someone recommends something that I am an expert in, they'll send them back to me. So it works as well. That's like, call
Very
it
good.
law
Does
of
anybody
reciprocity or
know?
whatever.
I'm going to give bonus points to anybody that knows the term that I use for those type of conversations, where you have a list of possible things to talk about? What do I call that? Does anybody remember? Anybody on the screen remember? Everybody's multiple outcome. Thank you. Aurelia wins the prize. Multiple outcome conversations, right? And how I train my people, Gary, is when you're talking to somebody, I said, there's always going to be something you can offer. You're never running out of something that you have. But every conversation, I want to give them something somebody else in my network has that can help them. And I want to give them a free resource that I know that can help them. So either way in the conversation, 2/3 of what I'm giving them or talking to them about has nothing to do with me. Right? So that as well is going to leave them knowing I'm on their side and I'm out to have them win. Right? Joe asked a question that I'm going to give my opinion on, but I want you to go first. Referrals or buying leads that may be cold leads. Is that bad?
I would like a little bit of context behind that, just to kind of make sure I'm understanding the question correctly. So I
Joe?
don't know if you want to share first, or whether Joe wants to come
Joe
on
says
and kind of
trust is
explain
earned
it
in
first.
selling to strangers is a major challenge in business. Referrals or buying leads that may be cold leads that are bad. That's what he said. So I'm not 100% sure either. Joe, I'm going to give you my 2 cents on this. Buying leads or cold call lists is not bad. Okay. However, if you're the one calling and you're not in love with doing cold calls, then the person you're calling is definitely going to know that. Right? Like there's one guy in our network who's amazing. His name is Blaze McLean. He loves making cold calls, right? Give him a script. He is happy to call as many people as you want, right? He loves it. Okay. I don't know many people like Blaze. So therefore, when I'm doing calls and they're cold, quote unquote, right? I don't call them with an intention of causing anything other than to move them from being a cold to a warm. In other words, I don't ever try and sell in that first conversation unless they explicitly ask me for more information about what I do. My game is to turn them from a cold, prospect, a cold connection to a warm connection, right? Then once they're a warm connection, I can take a look at that. Yeah, Joe says, I bought a lead list of emails and it turned out to be mostly dead and the numbers were bad too 6 years ago. Yeah, well, here's the thing about email, okay? So email marketing really is kind of dead in the water. There are still people that do it, but look at how many emails you never open. You guys, how you never open them, okay? So that will tell you immediately, right? So that's one thing. Text marketing, much higher percentage because 98% of people still open every text message that comes in on their phone, right? So I use email for supplementary information. I'll do a drip campaign. For example, we just had the Project Abundance Business Summit, which you all can still register for. You give a donation and there's tons of keynotes and bonus gifts in there. But I'm going to send out more information about that saying, hey, you didn't miss it. And I'll probably do a 3 email arc, but I'm not expecting to get a ton of results from there. Where I'm going to get the results from is when I'm talking to people. Right? So unfortunately, I had somebody else who was a client of mine who just bought a 15,000 person list and he's now going through it and he's discovering the same thing that you did, Joe, right? Which is cold calling really isn't the way to really get referrals and to make sure that your pipeline is full, right? It's one of those things. It's just one of those things that we can't get past. So how do we build a business based on trust instead of tactics? So how often, I say to people, you should be checking in with people at least 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and a year, okay? Because you don't know what's happened in their life in the last year. Like my buddy who lost all those people. He wasn't returning any calls. It wasn't personal to me, right? So I said at least that much. And, then there is, hey, do you want to hear about the webinars and the meetings and the cool stuff I have coming up? You do? Great. I'll send stuff to you regularly until you tell me to stop, right? But then it's checking in with those people. So what are some other tips and tricks that you have to really help people build those relationships?
So for me, ultimately, what I always recommend with people whenever they ask that question is, how do I build trust in people? I always ask them to flip it. And I say, well, that is, how do people build trust in you? How the people in your net, why do you trust them? The people that you trust the most in business or in life or whatever, why do you trust them? Usually it's because they care about you, they're interested in you, they want the best for you, and they're being consistent in showing up, and they're authentic. Think about the people that you're genuinely friends with, your very best friends, and the family that you really care about. Because we all have our immediate family, the people that are really close to us, and then maybe some other family members, which we see every now and then. We have more trust in the people that are there and are a present part of our lives. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to in business as well. It's being present in people's lives and investing in those relationships and being authentic and genuinely caring about them. That a lot of people as well, they say that if you approach it in that way, then it's going to harm your chances of getting sales, because they'll see you as a friend, but they won't see you as a potential person that could buy from. I've seen that not to be true when you do it in the right way. I've had many people where I've invested relationships in that kind of way, and they've sent many referrals my way. So I don't need them to become a client anyway. But I have also had people where they have become friends first and clients later. So I know from my own experience that that's not always the case. There are probably times where it can harm the relationship. I don't know the reasons for that. It could be, I'd have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. But I know that I've had many people that I've developed friendships with who have then later on become clients. So I'm not worried about that.
Yeah. I think the two things that you said that are critical is consistency and authenticity.
Yeah.
Right? If you're just talking to them to get somewhere, to fulfill on your agenda, people are going to be crystal clear that that's what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're calling them and, and this is a really great thing that I tell people is set them up that you're going to be calling them and checking in with them, and then fulfill on your word. Right?
Yes.
Like I'll say people, listen, I'll check back in with you in a couple of months. And then I end the call, go to my calendar, and I schedule the call 2 months from now to call them back on the day I said I would do it. Right? So they know I can count onable for my word.
So I've got a story about that, and it's the one that really demonstrates this point. I was in a conversation with somebody, and we was looking at potentially him becoming a client. And he mentioned a goal that he'd set for himself in a very specific day when he was going to achieve that goal. He was that type of person where he's like, I'm going to achieve this goal on this day. I made a note of that. And on that specific day, I reached out to him and messaged him and said, did you reach your goal on the exact day that he told me? And he said to me, that's right. The money thing he said was, that's the money. That's where the money is right there. That's what you just did that nobody else would ever do. Is that you remembered a specific date and you reached out on that specific date. And that was about 6 months in the future. So I had to, I was no way I was going to remember that off the top of my head. I wrote it down, but I made a point that I am going to reach out because one, I was genuinely curious if he'd reach it, but also if there was some way that I could help him, because at that time it wasn't the right time, but maybe in 6 months' time it might be, especially if he doesn't reach his goal. That could make it even more apparent that he needs my help. But those are the things that you do that builds trust and gets people invested in you.
I met this guy at least 15 years ago at a networking meeting. And while we were talking, then I think he said the day before this meeting what had been his birthday. Right. And I said, wow, awesome. Happy birthday. And he goes, do you know that you're the only one to wish me happy birthday? And I just felt a gut punch. I'm like, are you kidding me? You don't have any family, nobody called you, nobody texted you to wish you happy birthday? He's like, no. And I literally opened up my phone and scheduled in my calendar, an annual occurrence in my calendar. And for 15 years, I've been calling him and singing him happy birthday on his birthday for 15 years. Okay. Now, this guy's never given me a lead. All right. But about 6 years ago, he had somebody in his life who needed something. And my ex-husband happened to be a master of that thing that he needed. And my ex-husband ended up getting a side hustle job with that guy that brought him probably $30,000, $40,000. Okay. Now, am I particularly benefiting financially from that? No. All right. But the fact that my ex-husband was helped, I'm willing to do anything for this guy now because he helped somebody I cared about. Right. And here's the thing. If the person you're talking to isn't a business owner and you can't refer them business, Every single person you know knows a business owner, has a business owner in their family, right? Their uncle's a plumber, or their cousin does, does landscaping or whatever. They all know one. And if you give them referrals or you give them benefit and value, it's just as if you gave it to us. Because if you care for the people I care about, you're also caring about me, right? And we forget that. And here's the thing, you guys, before you get on the phone and do any calls, do your prep. Okay. If you've never looked at I think I call it the warm market indirect script. I know I've given it to Aurelia. I know I've given it to a few people on the screen. What the one piece at the top of that script that most of you skip over is prepping for the call and going and looking that person up on LinkedIn or Facebook or both, because you can tell a lot about what somebody loves from their Facebook profile. Okay. You'll be able to tell if they like dogs, if they like wine, if they like yoga, if they like, whatever it is that brings them joy, they're going to be mentioning it on their Facebook profile. And you'll have an idea of the kind of personality that they are. And then when you do the follow-up, which by the way, I do a whole training on this. And if you want a free coupon to do the training, send me a direct message and I will get you a coupon. I do a whole training on this where I show people how to send them a card, and I have them put on the card, on the front of the card, a picture of something that brings them joy. Not what brings you joy. Sometimes what brings them joy is it's just a picture of them and their family on the front of the card. One guy, I sent him a picture. So funny. So for some of you who don't know, my youngest sister is an actor. Okay. And she's very well known in the sci-fi genre. So I ran into this guy who happened to be a huge fan of her show. Okay. I had a signed picture sent to him. You would have thought I gave the guy a freaking Maserati. He was so happy. Like seriously, he has it hanging up right behind his head so you can see the picture on all of his Zoom calls. It's like right here, right? Like, okay. Now, it didn't take me much time. Back then I had a stack of her pictures at home anyway, right? Like it didn't take me much effort. Okay. And it was worth money because when you get those pictures, you can actually sell them online for a nice bit of coin, right? But the point is that it was something he loved because I saw it on his Facebook profile because he was mentioning his favorite TV shows. I was like, oh, his favorite TV show is one of her shows. Bonus, right? So they talk about what they love. And when you take that extra 5 minutes, just 5 minutes to look them up on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook so that you can see what really matters to them, then during the conversation, you're going to go, hey, I saw that you like blah, blah, blah. Tell me a bit more about that. Why do you like that? Now you're having them talk about something that really lights them up. You've just gone 3 to 4 steps up the trust meter.
Mm. And there's another one I
Because you
can
cared enough to go and look.
there's another one I can share with that. So I think it was last year, maybe even a couple of years ago now, but either way, there was somebody that I was due to have a call with, I think in about 2 days. And I saw on their post, they put in about their daughter had just left university and was looking for work. And she was really struggling because the job market is obviously so competitive. There's so many people going for every job. And it was in an area where I had quite a few connections. So I spoke to a few of them and I said, are you hiring? And one of them was. And when I got on the call, the first thing I said was, I know your daughter's looking for a job at the moment. I've set up an interview with this person, give them a call, mention my name, and they'll give your daughter an interview. That for him was like huge because his family is like the most important thing in the world to him. And all that took me was a couple of messages just to see if anyone was hiring. And luckily there was, but even if it wasn't, I could have gone onto some other job boards. I could have found something. But luckily, someone that I already knew was, and because I had invested in that relationship, they was more than willing to give her an interview for that person. And it's little things like that that make a huge difference.
Yeah. So the little things just matter so much. Well, we're going to stay with Gary here for another couple of minutes in our live, okay? And I want to thank all of you at Facebook that were here to join us today. Please get your questions, if you have them, into the chat, and I will make sure Gary answers them if I can't, all right? Because referrals makes the difference. If you win at your referral game, you will win at the game called business. That's just the way it goes. All right, thank you, everybody. I'm going to stop the live stream now, and we're going to continue with Gary here in the room. End live stream, end live stream. Yes, end. Okay. Sometimes it doesn't like to take the thing that says end. All right, we'll just get rid of it this way. All right. Questions, yeah, buts, what abouts for Gary, those of you who are in the room. Who has questions about this topic? Susan says, when do you call someone when you meet them at an event?
Should you call
So
them
if you meet someone,
sorry.
Go ahead.
sorry, no worries. Yeah, and if you've got any more context to that, that'll be great because it'll help me even more with the answer.
So like
No,
if
go
you're
ahead,
at a
Susan.
hi, thank you so much, Sean and Gary, for this conversation. I think it's very important. So when you're at an event and you meet people, maybe not the first time around, but they know of you and you know of them and you finally exchange numbers, do you call them the next day or should you wait like 2-3 days later?
Get it done in 48 hours.
Great
is my
question.
opinion.
Mine's 24 hours.
Yeah. Within 24 to 48 hours, no later than 48 hours, Susan, if you can help it.
Yeah.
So basically right away, at least acknowledge that you met them and then maybe plan either like a coffee or lunch gathering or something, right?
Or just
That's what I do.
I call it a coffee, a Zoom coffee.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what anyone that I have conversations with, and I think there's a potential there for referral partnership, collaboration. I can be of value to them or them to me. I'll set up. I'll send that message in 24 hours, and I will look to set up that one-to-one call. And it's always around the like basically saying, "Oh, we met at such and such event. I'd love to take the conversation further. Shall we set up a one-to-one call sometime in the next week or so, something like that, whatever the message might be." But yeah, within 24 hours to reach out to schedule that one-to-one call.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You want to schedule something because, I've always found that I never get to all the questions I have to ask them in 15 minutes anyway, right?
Exactly.
So at the end of the first 15 minutes that I'm talking with them, I'm always scheduling another call. It's like, I have like 10 more questions. Can we schedule more time together before we go on and talk about what I do? Right? Like I always make sure that we schedule more time for me to connect with them. And it's always a good idea that you never get off the phone without another call scheduled to check in at some point that's scheduled in their schedule. It's really great. Thanks, Susan. Aralia?
Oh wait, I just want to say something.
Yeah.
I don't think people see the value of networking and referrals. When I graduated college, my paper was on mentoring and networking, and they made me change my theme because the chairperson, like, I almost didn't graduate because she didn't see the value of mentoring and networking.
Wow.
And I had to come up with some BS paper, which I wasn't happy about. And today, now colleges are realizing it, but I don't think they really get it. But the power of networking and mentoring, but since we're talking about referrals, is very powerful. I think for me is people are very quick to call me to refer them to others. Does it someone like me, should I be compensated for me making all the connections to so and so and so and so?
Well,
Okay, so
I'm
do you want to answer
making,
that first, Sean?
and I'll tell you why. I have a lot of resources. I ran a women's group for almost 30 years. I have resources, and people always call me up. Oh, by the way, Susan, I know you know so and so, but you know what? After a while, I remember a man. He always got hit. Oops, this is being recorded. But he said he always got compensated for net connecting people. So, what's your thought of that?
you go ahead, Gary, and then I'll give my 2 cents.
Yeah, of course. So of all the referrals that I make in a year, and it's probably hundreds, maybe even more than that at this point, but there's a lot of referrals that I make in a year. A large percentage of them, I don't know what percentage it is at this point, but most of them I don't get compensated for. And the reason for that is I'm more interested in the reciprocation of referrals. I much prefer the referrals coming back to me rather than the commissions that I can get from it. Some people are incentivized by commissions, and if they are, there's nothing wrong with that. But what I find is actually a lot of the time, the commissions can actually sometimes harm the relationship that you've built. But when it's based on reciprocity of, I just want to help you out, I want to be able to refer people to you and not worry about the commissions, that can actually encourage them even more. And sometimes they're more kind of geared towards the fact that actually they just want to help people out. They just want to make the right connections and the right introductions and the right referrals at the right time and give people exactly what they need. So I'm not interested in commissions myself. I know some people that are, so I think it is very much a case-by-case basis. And if somebody, let's say I take someone on as a referral partner, if they want commissions, I'm more than happy to give them to them. And if they want to give me commission, that's okay, but I never ask for it, and I never worry about what I want from it. It's like, what would they prefer? If they prefer the commissions, great. If they don't want it, that's okay again.
Yeah, and I'm with you, Gary. There are certain people where I take commissions from them, Susan. Okay. So for example, if I'm referring to another coach, they already know they're going to be giving me a 20% commission as long as that person's their client. Okay. But if I'm referring to, let's say there's somebody that I know that needs some video editing done, right? I'll hand that referral off to Brian without thinking two things of it. And I'm not expecting Brian to pay me a commission, because I know I'll get it out of Brian's ass later at a later date in some other way, right? Okay, because we're friends and I know he's going to be on, he's going to be on my list if I need something. Okay. So there's those type of relationships where you build where money's just not part of it, but it's like, you're putting emotional deposits into their bank account, their emotional bank account, right? So I'm either going to get something from their emotional bank account or I'm going to get something monetarily, but in some way, I'm getting something from them at some point where they will thank me. And
Okay.
if somebody isn't that kind of person, then I'm not giving them referrals.
So I have a question for you, Sean. So say you give a coach somebody to become their coach for them. So that coach now gives you a 20% commission.
Yeah, but that's because I've set that up with any coaches that I give that to.
Business to, right?
Yeah.
So what happens when that person that they're coaching refers them to somebody else? Will you get commissions on that person?
I'm not sure I'm clear. You mean if they then send that same person to somebody else?
So say, I'm just making up the name. John is a coach. You said Michael. So Michael is now going to be coached by, oh my God, let me write this down. John is the coach. Michael's going to be
I send Michael to John, and John coaches Michael, and John pays me a commission.
Right. And then Michael now refers him to somebody else. Says, I want you to.
I don't have anything to do with that.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Although it's still emotional deposits in his account every time you get something, because I was in the picture, which is great. All right, question on the floor. Aurelia, please go ahead.
I have two questions. I wanted to get your take on this. I've talked to Sean about it, and I already know what she thinks. Why do you think it is so freaking difficult to make sales nowadays? Because I was top salesperson when I was going out cold calling about 20 years ago, from business to business to business. That's one question. The other question, and now it's like pulling teeth. And it was easy. And I never duped anyone. I always went out of my way to get the best deal I could for the client. The other thing is, what happens when you constantly give and you don't get back? And I had another question, but I forgot. So I'll let you start on that. I probably will remember in a sec.
Okay, so if I forget that second question, I might ask you to repeat it, but at the moment I've remembered it. So the first one is about why is it getting so difficult to sell?
So freaking difficult, yeah.
And I believe the reason for that is because we're being sold to all day, every day, from multiple angles, different platforms that we're on, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, people calling us, texting us, emailing us. It always feels like someone's trying to sell us something.
Right.
At a certain point, we become almost immune to it. We don't even pay attention to it anymore. So even now, if something comes through where actually it might be of interest to me or actually might be helpful, I barely pay any attention to it because I'm being sold to by so many different people. The only time I pay attention is when somebody has invested a lot of time and energy into the relationship they built with me. If they then make me an offer, I'm going to pay attention, but that's because of the person, not because of the offer. So I believe that's why it's more difficult, is because we're now being sold to in more ways and in more times than we ever have in the past. That's why in the past it used to be a lot easier for people to make sales.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, that's what Sean was saying.
And then the second one, I believe it was the, sorry, just remind me again, actually. I think I've got it, but just remind me again.
I have found myself, and this is something that Sean taught me, always giving referrals, giving them at the beginning of a call. She said, give them later. And rarely, if ever, get anything in return.
Mhm.
So
Okay,
I'm
so
worn out about not even a thank you, not even a callback to say, hey, I called and it went this way or that way, or thank. It's shocking.
Okay, but here's the thing, Aurelia. Here's my opinion on this, okay? You've got to train your people, right? I train all of my referrals, right? I train them. Just like if I were Mark, I would train every single person, my referrals, to donate to my nonprofit, right? Like I would just start training everybody that came to me, oh, I do this. Mark's an end-of-life doula, by the way, which I think is an incredible service to give because it's so rare for people to be able to be around others when they're going through the end of life. That is not an easy time for anybody. And Mark, I would love for you to schedule a call with me because I have all kinds of ideas for you on how I could help you building that, okay? Because it's such a critical service. But here's the thing, you guys. Remember, everybody has an emotional bank account. So you're either making a deposit into their account or you're making withdrawal. People are doing the same with you. And if they make too many withdrawals, it's perfectly okay to stop answering the door and stop taking the calls.
so I would give an answer to that as well, is that yesterday I had this very conversation with somebody else said the same thing that Aurelia just said then, is that sometimes it feels like we're giving and giving and giving, and we don't get anything in return. And there was a guy yesterday I was helping with his business, and I'd invited him to a coaching session with me because I reached out to him last week to say I wanted to introduce him to someone. And he was like, oh my God, I can't believe you've reached out now. It's perfect timing. Even though there was no strategy behind it, it was just because I was checking in because I thought I hadn't spoken to him for a while. Anyway, he then said, it feels like I'm giving to people all the time and I never get anything back in return. And I said the same thing to him, is you let people know what they can do for you. And a bit like you said then, is training them as well. And the emotional bank account thing, if you fill their emotional bank account by giving with them, at some point or another, you can then ask for something in return. And they'll be more than willing to do it because you've invested into them so many times. Most of the people who are very giving aren't very good at the receiving. And part of the receiving sometimes is asking for it or letting people know how they can help you or what you can do for them. Because a lot of the time, they don't always think to ask. So I've got people who are giving me immense value so many times. I can guess what I can do for them, but very often the thing that actually would be most valuable for them at that moment is something that I never even thought of. But then because they tell me that, I'm like, oh, okay, I can do that for this person. Going back to the one where his daughter that was looking for a job, there's no way on earth I would have thought about that. But because he was saying to people, this is what I need right now, this is what's important to me, I was able to then go and do that. So sometimes it's letting people know what it is that actually you would like to receive. And if you make enough investment into those and fill their emotional bank account, they're going to be more likely and more willing to do that.
Very good. Brilliant.
What about, Sean, you said to train people. I don't have a nonprofit that they can donate to. So
No,
how can I
but you would
train-
want to train them for how you want to receive referrals and for what would make a difference for you, right? And I'll be straight with people. I'm like, listen, I'm willing to give you everything I got. But if you just call me every time and you only have an ask and you're never, you don't have any gives, I'm going to stop answering my phone. I train them, right? I'm straight about it. I love to help people, right? I'll go out of my way to help people if they're making requests. But then when I call, I expect an occasional yes, not a yes every time, right? But there was this one guy who used to phone me for coaching all the time. He probably called me once a month for like at least a year, okay? And I called him 4 times for different things. Would you be willing to come to this fundraiser? Would you be willing to do that? Could you help so-and-so move this? Like I had 4 different requests over like 4 or 5 months. No, 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 no. I just stopped answering the call. And I literally didn't answer his call for the next 3 months. After that 3-month period, I answered the next call in the 4th month. And he goes, oh, I'm so glad you answered my call. I've had this whole experience of you being unavailable to me. And I said, isn't that funny? That was my experience too for several months. Do you want to start fresh? In other words, if you keep saying no to me, I'm going to stop answering your calls. This is how this is going to work because I only like reciprocal relationships, right? I don't want to run out of time before we get to Mark. So Mark, please go ahead. No, we can't hear you, Mark. No, I don't hear you.
You don't hear me.
Now we hear you.
You
Oh,
don't.
there we go. I can hear him now.
Thank you for the kind words about what I'm up to, and I find that, you know, this is the kind of platform where I get to share where I'm most successful. Gary, my problem is I can't be calling people to be clients, because by the time I hear that they're sick and dying, it's already too late. So I look for referral partners. I've been looking for priests and rabbis, and I have 3, and it's really not enough. I need more. I need more
Yeah.
referral partners. And the average person, not the priests and rabbis, but the average person does look for some kind of commission. And it's illegal as a nonprofit to pay somebody for a referral. So I'm caught in a
Hold on. Are you sure it's illegal as a nonprofit?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Kickback. It's totally
In some
illegal.
in some countries, it is.
And
Yeah.
well, I know that in the US it is. The
Hmm.
IRS really frowns.
I think in the UK, I don't know. I don't think the rules apply the same way, but I was aware. I don't know if it's a whole of
They
the
don't in
US, but I know
Canada
in some
either.
parts. Yeah, in
Yeah.
some parts of the US, I know it is illegal in those situations.
But you absolutely are correct. It's your referral partners, or what we call strategic alliances, Mark, where you'll get the
Right.
biggest
And-
bang for the buck. So definitely,
And I-
we'll
I
get on
have
a
been
call, we'll
having
brainstorm.
My issue is I don't know how to get to those people, because if I like join a Facebook group or a LinkedIn group, all those for rabbis or priests or ministers, they all say as part of the group, you can't advertise. So I'm kind of lost as to how to. This has been my
So-
fight years.
What I would do in that situation is I wouldn't try and go directly to the priests and the rabbis. I would go to the people who are the parishioners, or I don't know what you call them. Sorry, because I'm not up with the terms of on the religious side of things, but the people that are in those churches and religious environments that know the priests and rabbis, that then potentially could recommend you and introduce you to the people that you're trying to build partnerships with. So I'd maybe go into, say, Facebook groups or communities for people that are part of that religion. Maybe then building relationships with those people would be your best bet to get in front of the right people.
Yeah. And Mark, the other thing that you can do is go to the Idea Incubator. So reach out to me on WhatsApp and I'll send you the link for that. It's a brainstorming group run by a friend of mine in Southeast US. And he runs it every couple of weeks, and you can go in and say, here's my issue, and then just let everybody in the group throw ideas, throw spaghetti at the wall. And it's amazing, because the best stuff I've ever done was ideas that came from brainstorming rather than from my head.
80-20, is that the 80-20 media
It's
group?
called the Idea Incubator,
Okay,
and it's
yeah.
run by Eric Englart. So I will
I know
I'll give
Eric.
you a link for it. Yeah. So Eric
I know
runs it, and he
Eric
runs it
very
every
well.
couple of weeks.
Okay, I'll
It's
reach
a
out to
great
Eric.
opportunity. All right, you guys, if you have more questions, by all means, please get them to me, and I will make sure Gary gets them. Gary, thank you so much for being
You're
here
welcome.
with us and
I've
causing that
loved it.
today.
It's
That
been a
was
great
such a great
conversation.
topic.
Yeah, I've loved
Awesome.
every moment. We had some really cool questions, and I love the way that you frame a lot of the questions around. It's got me talking about things I don't often talk about, which is always a sign of a great conversation.
Exactly, exactly. All right, next week, I don't know who's on the agenda off the top of my head, but every week we have some great topics. So please feel free to come on back, and we'll cause it again a week from today, Coach's Corner. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Don't know where the dinging's coming